With Team of the Season just around the corner, if you guys need FIFA 23 coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the best attacking formations in the game. This is the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, otherwise known as the 4-1-2-1-2 second variation. Now just before we get into today's video guys, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with YouTube's really bad search algorithm. Also sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics for the defensive style, as always I suggest using balance. Now the reason we use balance is because it gives you the greatest control over your defense, where you're able to press when you need to press, and you're also able to drop off and be a little bit more passive when you need to be. I do very much suggest using balanced, as it does give you greater control. Now moving on to the defensive width, I have this on 35. This is so we can primarily defend in a narrow shape, because it's super important to block all those attacks through the middle of the pitch. It's important that you have a nice compact defense, but at the same time we still have that little bit of natural width to cover the wide areas in case an opponent tries to run down the wing. Now moving on to the depth, I like to have this on 55. This is a really nice balanced defensive line. This means we're not going to get pinned back with a super low defensive line, and we're not always just going to get through balled either, because our defensive line won't be crazy high. It's kind of nice and balanced where we can kind of pick and choose what we do. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I like to have this on balance. This is because it's the most consistent and it gives you the most variety in your attack. So sometimes you can build up a little bit slower, other times you can build up quickly. You know, you really do have a choice. It's also the most consistent with all types of FIFA 23 gameplay, because FIFA 23 gameplay is obviously very inconsistent. Sometimes you can have fast gameplay, other times you can have really slow gameplay. So using something like fast build-up when the gameplay is really slow is not ideal. So balance is just the way to go in my opinion. Now moving on to chance creation, I suggest using direct passing because it's the most meta option. Your attackers will bunch up against the defenders, meaning you can do the really overpowered isolation plays, the 1v1 plays, to really create those chances. You also get the extra pass option off in the box, meaning you can guarantee those goals. If you don't like direct passing, you can use something like forward runs. This will commit your team very far into your opponent's half, but just beware, if you lose the ball, you are in a lot of trouble. Now moving on to the attacking width, I like to have this on 40. This is so we can have a primary narrow attack, because obviously it's a narrow formation, so we do want to keep it nice and narrow. We don't want to make it too narrow though, because our players will be like sat on top of each other and it's kind of inefficient, and we don't want it to be super wide either, otherwise we might as well just use the wide formation. Moving on to players in box, I like to have this on 6 so we can commit some players into the box to create those chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, we have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. Link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the plays you want to use guys, in the two striker positions I suggest going for a balance between the two. So what I like to do is have one more creative player on one side and then a more poacher player on the other side, so we've got like a creative finisher dynamic. The reason I like to do this is because it gives you a greater variety in your attack, where you're not just limited to always playing those through balls and crosses, because your striker has the technical ability of an Eddie Stobart lorry, sorry. I don't know what I'm on about, but yeah, you kind of just want to have a nice balance between the two strikers, as you just get a lot more out of them by doing that. Moving on to the cam, I suggest going for a nice technical player. This is somebody with really good dribbling stats, nice agility, somebody that can shoot, pass, basically do a bit of everything in attack. You're not going to want somebody that is super clunky or somebody without any creative ability, otherwise you might struggle, as the cam is like the main playmaker in this team. Now moving on to the right centre mid, I suggest using a more box to box style midfielder. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend, so if you can get it, like a high work rate is super beneficial, so you get the maximum contribution in attack and defense, but just make sure that this card is nice and well rounded so they can do a bit of everything. Now moving on to the CDM, I suggest going for a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that is going to stay back for us, so if you can get it, a medium high work rate is super beneficial, so you get the maximum contribution in defense and they're not too bothered about going forward. In the left centre mid spot, I suggest using an actual attacker because they're not actually going to play as a centre mid when we are defending. This will make more sense in the player instructions. So just go for an actual attacker here. Somebody like an Mbappe, a Neymar, Messi, any of those types of players are really good. You don't have to worry about making them a centre mid if you don't want. Moving on to the left back and the right back, I like to go for a balance between the two. So I've got Roberto Carlos in the left back position, who's my more attacking minded fullback. This is somebody that will go forward for us. And then in the right back position, I've got Cafu, who's a little bit more defensively sound, and his whole purpose is to defend. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be as good as you can get them. There's not too much to say about them. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, on both strikers I actually just have them on stay central. The reason we have them on stay central is because we don't want them drifting off into the wide positions. They are our strikers, so we do need them to be in the central area, so they're always where the striker should be. It's super important that we have that on. We also have them on mixed attack as opposed to getting behind, so we get more out of the strikers. By having them on mixed attack, it means they're going to get more involved in the build-up and you're going to get a lot more out of your strikers. If you just put them both on getting behind, they're always just going to be looking for those through balls and their movement is going to be very limited and you're going to have to play in a very one-dimensional way. You can put like your more like finisher striker on getting behind if you want, but honestly I think mixed attack is just the way to go. Now moving on to the cam, I just have him on comeback on defense. Now the reason we do this is because it's going to make the team defend in a 4-4-2. The reason we want it to defend in a 4-4-2 is because the 4-4-2 formation is a much better defensive formation than the 4-1-2-1-2. This is because we've obviously got more width between the midfielders and we're able to cover a lot more areas. Like if we're defending in the 4-1-2-1-2 shape, for example, there's so much space down the wide areas that it just becomes impossible to defend. So comeback on defense means this cam's going to come back to defend as a right mid in the 4-4-2 shape. Now moving on to the right centre mid, the box-to-box centre mid, we have him on default settings and cover centre. We have him on default settings because he is a box-to-box player, so we don't really want to restrict him all that much. We kind of want him to have that free roll and let him do whatever he wants to do. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. Now moving on to the CDM, we have him on cut passing lane, stay back while attacking, and cover centre. We have him on stay back because he obviously is the defensive minded player, so we don't want him going forward. We have him on cut passing lane, so he's always looking to break up the play and intercept all those passes. It's super useful to have that on. And then we also have him on cover centre, so he does defend as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2 shape. It's important that you get the defensive positions correct because if you've got like cover wing on one of these, it will mess up the defensive shape. Now moving on to the left centre mid where we use an actual attacker, we have him on get forward, get into the box for cross, and cover wing. We have him on get forward, so he's always looking to go forward because he is an actual attacker. We have him on get into the box for cross, so he's not hesitant to get into the penalty area because if we have him on balanced crossing runs, sometimes they'll just like stutter, they'll hesitate, and they'll kind of just watch whatever you're doing in the penalty box and they won't really get involved. So get into the box cross, super useful. And then most importantly, cover wing, so he will defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2 shape. So the way this team's going to set up is the back four will be the same. My left mid will be Chiesa, my left centre mid will be Jorginho, my right centre mid will be Pogba, and my right mid will be Jairzinho. Moving on to the left back, guys, my more attacking fullback, I have him on balanced attack and overlap. The reason we do this is because the 4-1-2-1-2 is obviously a narrow formation, so sometimes we need to get that extra whip. So by putting this player on balanced attack and overlap, it means he's always going to be making the overlapping runs to give us extra width into the attack, so we always have that wide option when we're going forward. It's super underrated and super beneficial to use. On my more defensive minded fullback, I have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we always at least have 3 at the back, and then we have him on the overlap run type, so in case I do trigger a run forward with him with L1, he'll make the overlapping runs to add extra width. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-1-2-1-2. If you have enjoyed or found this useful, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.